So we've had a surprise update and some new packs for Cities Skylines 1, which is super exciting because I wasn't expecting them to release any new packs for the first game now that they've released Cities Skylines 2. However, the patch update has broken pretty much all of my saves. So instead of doing a new episode on any of my active builds, I'm going to go through and have a look at all of the maps from the new map pack. I am using the theme mixer, by the way, just to put a lot over the top. I really don't like the way that the lighting looks in the game, so I'm using the real neutral, non-relight colorless LUT. It kind of mutes a lot of the colors that you get in the vanilla theme. The first map that I'm going to be looking at is Karstlands. This is a tropical map. Now this is a beautiful map. I really like the starting tile, which is down here. I really love this abandoned city detailing. It reminds me of the walled cities from China, and it really gives me Sims 3 World Adventure vibes. It's really reminiscent of the Chinese map from that game, Shang Simla, so I'm liking this one already. I also like all of the abandoned house detailing around the edges. I think it gives a lot of personality to this map, even when it's got nothing on it. And zooming out, this is a very interesting layout. There's lots of these kind of hidden nooks and crannies in between all of the mountains, and I like how many roads there are going through them already. You're not going to have to be building your own highways out to all of these places, so it'd be a good one to play with the 81 tiles mod so that you can reach all of the corners of the map. Now, something that I noticed when I first opened this map is that the train line seems to run just outside of the starting square. However, if I go back into the game, I reckon you might be able to pull a train line off of this piece that goes across the corner, and you may be able to get access to it from the starting square. Obviously this won't be very helpful if you're playing with milestones because you don't unlock trains until quite further in, but if you're playing with all the features unlocked, at least you can do that from the very beginning without having to buy any more tiles. From a glance, it looks like there's a lot of fertile land and quite a lot of oil as well, which is unusual in my experience of maps in the base game. There's small pockets of trees like this area down here, but I think you might need to place some more trees down if you want to use the forestry industry. But I'm a fan of this map so far. I really like these intersections. They're really creative and something that I haven't seen before. I think the information for this pack said that it came with some new intersections, so it's good to see these being used on the board already. There's another new one down here. They're so much smoother than the ones that were in the base game. Some of those were atrocious, so it's nice to see that these ones have actually had some care and planning taken through. I'm a big fan of how there's already quite a few roads placed down, so you're not going to get that bottleneck like you do in quite a lot of the original maps. It has a lot more entry points, so you can have different pockets of the town in different places without having to feed everything down through one road. And you also don't have to use up your starting budget placing roads if you don't want to. Overall, I really like this map. I think this would lend really well to a Mediterranean build. I like the idea of there being lots of different little hidden towns and cities within the mountains, and I think you could probably build up quite a high population on this map because there is so much buildable land. The only thing there isn't masses of is water, but hopefully that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Overall, I think I would give this map a 9 out of 10. I think it has good potential, and I'm already thinking about what I'm going to be building on it. This next map is Promise Island. It's another tropical map, but it looks like it's a little bit more mountainous than the previous one, so let's take a look. There's lots of intersections around the starting tile area, and it looks like there's also a train connection. Is this a train connection? Yes. And some nice detailing down here. That's something that I've noticed in all of these maps so far, is that they've got really nice detailing in them. So let's have a look at the rest. Okay, so this is more like a tropical island kind of vibe. There's some spits out into the sea, and oh wow, a big crater there. That is huge. That is a very interesting feature that I haven't seen on any vanilla maps before. And it looks like it's got a good road system going through it as well. Even all the way out this way, and some more detailing. Is that meant to say something? Looks like it could be in Simlish maybe. So you've got lots of road connections, even going across the sea. And then you've got 2 going off this way. Or is that 3? Oh yeah, you've got 3 going off that way. and I'm assuming there aren't any this way, no. Okay, so you've got 4 road connections and a very good road network all the way around the map as well. Looks like you've got a bit of natural resources, but not anywhere as much as the previous map. And not anywhere near as much buildable area. There's still a decent amount because you could probably fit some good residential areas down here, maybe a city as well if you felt like it. And there's some small pockets in and around this big crater, but not masses of land, and it's also very hilly. That's quite a big incline there. Around the other side there's some natural resource pockets, but it's very steep terrain, so I think this one would probably be for more of a skilled builder. But it could be a good kind of tropical holiday type build. Now this is an intersection that I haven't really seen before, and I'm a big fan. I think this is very visually appealing and it seems to flow quite well. I'm not sure if there's any sort of node controlling on here to make sure that the roads merge properly, but I really like this. I hope this is one that's available in the catalogue as well, because I'd like to use that in my builds. This one here is very interesting as well. It could potentially be an overcomplicated intersection, but I guess it's 2 different highways joining together and kind of splitting off in different directions, so the traffic seems to be flowing quite slowly, so I can sense that that might be an issue on this map. I reckon the starting traffic percentage is going to be fairly low because of this, but at least it's not as bad as the ones in the original base game maps. So let's have a look at the starting tile. So you get a pretty decent amount of buildable land on the starting tile, and you get water out in 3 different directions, and there is a rail connection on the starting tile. It also looks like there's a few different natural resources as well. It looks like there's some oil, potentially a little bit of ore, and some fertile, with a small amount of forestry as well, maybe down in this corner. Now there is a huge amount of ore on this map in the mountains, and that isn't something that I've really seen on many of the vanilla maps, a bit like the oil in the previous one. So it could be good if you wanted to do a build based on mining and build some lore into that, but it's not my favourite type of industry, so that isn't such a big deal for me. I think this map is good. It kind of reminds me of the map that Few Candy used for her Solitude build. I wonder if there was any inspiration taken from that map, but I think it might be a while before I give this one a go, just because of how steep the terrain is in some places. I'm still not super confident in building on steep terrain, and I think if I play it with milestones on, I'll get very frustrated because the landscaping tools aren't available immediately. So I think I'm going to give this map a 7 out of 10. Now we're on to the Boreal maps. This is Expedition Harbour. It has quite an interesting starting square because there's 2 intersections here that I haven't seen before. This is a very neat and tidy intersection here. This side of the intersection feeds off to a road that runs right through the middle of the starting square, and there are a couple of intersections where you can have roads feeding off of it. There's quite a bit of detailing around the starting square, and again quite a few roads on it with multiple access points, so you're not going to have a bottleneck, and you're also not going to have to spend loads of money placing roads because there's some already down here. This is a very interesting intersection. I haven't seen one like this before. Unfortunately, it does seem as though there are some terrain issues here where the road has gone a little bit bumpy in places, but the look of it is very interesting and I like the big sweeping roads. It seems to have a pretty good flow, although these 2 slip roads here funnel into 1 lane, which I can foresee becoming a bit of an issue when there's more traffic coming through here. This is something that I get constantly criticized for on TikTok, even though I don't do this in my builds. I wonder if this is going to get the same sort of criticism, because I think this might get very backed up if there's lots of cars moving through here, because this is unfortunately on both this side and this side. So there's 2 instances of 2 lanes funneling down into 1 and then funneling up into 3. It's also a partial cloverleaf as well, but at least it looks visually appealing. It's very different to everything else we have in the game so far. This is a very beautifully decorated map, and there's lots of really nice intersections all over the place, so you won't have to necessarily place your own, But again, there's quite a lot of traffic on these intersections. So I'm guessing that the traffic percentage is going to be pretty low to begin with, because look at all of this backup, and I haven't even done anything on this map. I haven't placed a single thing. Let's have a look and see what it is actually. Okay, so it's 81%, but this is just red here. This is bad. This is something that would potentially need to be fixed once you got this part of the map unlocked, because it could possibly cause a lot of backup. And it's quite far away from the starting tiles, so you're going to have to wait quite a while to be able to get up there. It could potentially cause issues all the way up here as well if it's not managed properly, especially because this road here seems to attach directly to these intersections. So I wonder if cars will bypass the highway to get into the city through this road instead of the main one. And because this is a single lane, at least I believe it is, yeah, it's a single lane, it will possibly cause some backlog. But we'll have to see how that works when it's being played through. I don't think I'll be starting this map because it doesn't look like there's loads of buildable area. A lot of this is water, and I don't think there's any buildable down here. Very little buildable on this area. Although actually, looking at it again, I think if you cleared all of these trees away, there's quite a decent amount there. But up this way, it's very mountainous, and unless you got a little bit creative with building, there isn't much out this way. There's maybe a little bit of flat land you could carve out here, and possibly you could build down by the river if you had the 81 tiles mod. But it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 external road connections, and it looks like there's also 2 rail connections. So not as many as the previous maps, but at least you have access to shipping on this one. So I think this map is okay. I like the attention to detail, and I really like the intersections. I think they are very different to anything we've seen before on the vanilla maps, at least. I think if you were a particularly creative builder and you liked working with sloped terrain, you could probably do something really interesting with this. But I don't think I'll be playing on this map anytime soon, because I like to have a little bit more buildable area, and I also like to have different pockets of land that are separated by things like rivers or mountain ranges. In terms of natural resources, there's a lot of ore and a lot of trees, but there's not very much fertile land. And I'm someone who likes to build farms, so I don't think this will be the map for me. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10, mainly for the attention to detail. I really like the intersections, I like the detailing, but I think that some of the intersections could potentially cause problems because they are already, and I haven't even placed anything down yet. And there isn't really enough buildable area for me, but this may be one that grows on me. Sometimes I don't like maps at a first glance, but I end up liking them more in the long run, so we'll see how I feel about this one over time. The second Boreal map is Nordheim. I'm a big fan of this one already. I think the starting tile has a lot of potential. There seems to be a road running all the way through the middle of it, and it looks as though there's also a rail connection straight off the bat, so let's have a look. So there's a lot of different road connections here. So there's one coming in off of this highway up here, and then it also connects back to the same highway and then goes this way, and it connects up to this highway here and here. It does seem like a lot of road connections, and it may seem a little bit unnecessary, but I appreciate the commitment to not having a bottleneck with any of these maps. So I really like this kind of sunken road under the railway, and oh, that's very good timing, a train coming through. It looks like it splits off into a triangle here. There's also some detailing down on the waterfront. I really like that. This is really pretty. I like the fact that there's lots of flowers and bushes down there. That's some really nice attention to detail, and a little abandoned house there. So down this way, there's this intersection here and some great train detailing. I reckon you could make a really good train yard around here. And there's also a lot of felled trees and an abandoned ship. And then another great interchange up here. This is a very, very smooth one. And then around the corner, the train splits off into 2. And there's another great intersection down here. Wow, these roads go all over the place, don't they? It's almost like a circular system. There's a big mountain in the middle there, but I reckon you could get a lot of buildable space from down here. Even if you were to work with these hills, you could probably do a really good staggered city. And then there's a great bridge with a hump in the middle, I'm guessing to allow ships to pass through. I really like that detail. And then there is a island with a little lighthouse on the end, and it's got a bit of a ridge in the middle, but you could either level that or work with it. Some decent buildable land around the edge. Interesting that there's not an intersection already on this island, seems there's so many all over the other places, but it'd be very easy to make one there. And then there is another great intersection here, although a lot of these are single lane roads, which I can foresee becoming a problem like the previous map, but with the amount of access points it may not be so much of an issue. There's some more train passing points down here. I don't know if they're actually functional, but at least they look good. And going up this way, there is another kind of newish intersection here. I haven't seen one that's exactly this shape before. And then this same kind of sweeping cloverleaf here. Some of these roads, I don't know whether it's something to do with the mods being broken, but some of these roads do look a little bit odd, where you've kind of got this strange terrain around the edge. It looks like maybe these were possibly supposed to be raised roads, or maybe the terrain is just acting a little funny, but this is almost like a 3/4 cloverleaf with one sweeping lane instead of two like the previous one. Up this way, wow, this is interesting. So this is like an old quarry, and it looks like there's a train loop around here, and there's a train coming around it. So have they intentionally fed the trains so that they have to come around here? Oh wow, there's loads of tracks down here. So what is this? Okay, so the trains could bypass if they wanted to, but knowing how the routing works in this game, they're probably going to go the longest way even though they don't have to. But I really appreciate how there's almost like a built-in cargo station area already here next to an industrial area, and there's even a highway connection. This is really good for planning your industry areas and making sure that the infrastructure is there in the future. I think this map would be really good for someone who isn't quite sure about where to be putting things and hasn't got very much experience with the game. There seems to be a lot of kind of hints about where things should go, and I really like that. Loads and loads of buildable area back here. This is probably one of the biggest ones we've seen so far. Even with all the mountains, there's a lot of expansive land that you can build on, and this lake is gorgeous across here. I reckon this will go really well with the new Mountain Village DLC. I can see why these have been paired together, because this would just look gorgeous with all of the little chalets on it. So let's have a look at the map as a whole. This is a really, really big map actually. There's so much buildable land here. You could pretty much build on all of this area here, plus down here in the starting tile, and this island, and this area around here, obviously if you had the 81 tiles mod. But I think this is actually a really, really good map. I'm a big fan of this one. Let's have a quick look at the starting tile to see what is included. So with the starting tile, you have 2 highway intersections, 3 roundabouts, and you have a train connection straight off the bat. I think this is pretty good. You don't have that much buildable space because a lot of it is taken up with roads, but at least you can split the villages off into separate areas so that you're not funneling everything through one intersection. There's a huge amount of ore in this map, mostly on the mountainous regions, not that much farming, so again, like I mentioned earlier, it probably won't be a map that I use straight away just because I really like to build farms. But maybe I'll get more into building with ore because this map does look really, really good. And I think it has a great potential to be a really, really great base, especially for someone who is maybe just starting out with the game and needs a little bit of a helping hand. I really like all the attention to detail, I like all the intersections. I am a bit dubious of the 1-lane highways, but with all of the different connections that you have, hopefully it will spread the traffic out a little bit. I'm going to give this map an 8 out of 10. This is Caldera County, the first temperate map that I'm going to look at. It seems to be fairly flat from a first glance, so let's take a look around. This is an interesting map. I haven't actually really seen many maps like this before where it's all pretty flat. but I guess as it's called Caldera County, that means that it is inside a caldera. So there is a lake, and that is pretty much the only water source apart from these tiny little rivers. There's some very small ponds here, but I doubt they're going to really do much. So this looks like it could potentially be a very challenging map. There is some outside connections, some more great intersections, and some very winding roads and train networks. This bridge here is great. This is really amazing. Imagine going over that. That is beautiful. Yeah, this is like nothing I've ever seen before on a map. Maybe I haven't looked at many maps before, but I think this one is very, very unique. So there's a road that goes all the way around the outside of the caldera, and it looks like it splits off into two. And it pretty much goes all the way around the outside, and then two roads come in. So like with the other maps, there seems to be some roads already on the starting tile. That seems to be a recurring theme, as is these old abandoned cars. I really like this detailing. This is quite different with the red trees and the palm trees. Even though this is a temperate map, it does have kind of a tropical feel. I wonder what the inspiration for this map was, because it feels very, very different and unique. So yeah, lots and lots of flat land. I mean, there's some slight variation in terrain, I think, but it's not very much. It looks like there's a lot of oil on this map. Let's have a look at the natural resources. Oh yeah, this is... I've never seen so much oil on a map before. That's insane. I have never seen anything like this before. Okay, so this will be the map that you use if you want to do a lot of oil drilling. There's quite a lot of fertile land as well, actually, more than there was in the Boreal map, so this is good. Doesn't seem to be anywhere near as much ore though, only a little bit around the edge of the crater. And forestry, there is not much at all. I reckon you're going to have to place down your own trees if you want to do any forestry. So let's look at the starting tile. It's a pretty good starting tile, lots of buildable land. There's a train line running through it as well, so if you have the milestones unlocked, then you can use that from the get-go, or outside connections. There's a few roads, and it kind of reaches out into all corners of the tile, which is something that I haven't really seen before. And this is kind of similar to the other ones where you don't really need to put as many roads down to begin with, you can just start zoning things straight away. This is a very interesting map. It looks like a fairly challenging one to use because of the lack of water sources. So you're not going to get the external connections from shipping, and you're also going to struggle with getting rid of waste. But I think this could be a really interesting one for a desert type build, especially if you get a theme that makes this look like desert rather than grass. I think there could be some very interesting things done with this map. Not really a map for me though. I do like temperate maps, but this one is a little bit too expansive with not much going on, and that tends to overwhelm me. So I think I'm going to give this map a 6 out of 10 just because I can't see myself using it, but I think it is a very interesting style map, and yeah, I think some interesting things could be done with it. This is another temperate map, Milestone Valley. And this is the only map that I've actually heard anything about prior to looking at all of them today. And I've heard that the tiles actually line up with the features on this map. So it seems to be the best one to use if you want to make the most out of all of the tiles that you buy. So this is what it looks like when you load in. Let's have a look at what it has to offer. Looks like there's two different train lines running through the starting tile, and they have a connection in the middle so they can go in any direction. There's also a highway running through it, but very basic highway connections. It's just two intersections, which is something that I haven't seen on any vanilla map so far, or even any custom one where you've just got a connection like this on a starting tile. So this is a very interesting looking map. This is very reminiscent of some of the rural areas in the US that I've seen on Google Maps. I quite often look around on the map and just try and find some interesting visual places, and I found quite a few areas like this, especially in the north of the Appalachian mountain range. There's a few places with some very strange shaped fields and a lot of these kind of circular fields. This is quite a common thing in a lot of different places, and I assume but it's because they have a rotating crop sprayer that just sits in the middle, and it's the best way to make the most of the space. But it makes for a very interesting look for a Cities Skylines map, and I'm very intrigued to see what else is on this map close to the ground. So there's an intersection here that's a bit like a turbine. It looks like it will run very, very smoothly, although it does appear to have these 2 lanes funneling down into one before reaching the highway, which I am dubious of. This highway goes out in 2 different directions. Let's follow it down this way. It goes in the same way as the train, and it looks like it just goes off the corner of the map there. But there's also a very interesting intersection here. This is something new as well, and this road goes off in this direction along the river and seems to go up into the center of the map as well. So it looks like the map is pretty much split into grids along this river here, and within the grid you've got various different features. Very interesting idea for a map. I kind of like it. It's very odd. You've got some detailing down here with a road going over the river, with a little graveyard, and another intersection here that is a sort of cloverleaf. Is this a cloverleaf? I'm not actually sure what this is. You've got some roads going across over here. This is kind of reminiscent of some junctions that you get in the UK, and they are an absolute nightmare to cross. They're terrifying because you don't really know who has right of way. So it may look like an odd choice, but I have seen intersections like this in the real world. I like the mountain range around the outside of the map. This road actually goes off in this direction really, really high up. So these 2 highways kind of join at this point, and the road just snakes up and around the mountains. I really, really like that actually. That is a lovely feature there, and you get a great view coming down this highway onto the rest of the map. There's another turbine intersection here, but it looks like again it's got some cloverleaf type detailing. And these probably all have names, but I have no idea what they are, so please correct me in the comments if I'm using the wrong terminology for these. Another intersection connecting these 2 highways together, and some of these field details. This is a very, very interesting map. This is something that I haven't seen before as well, where it's got this kind of loop going off this way. And again, with the abandoned cars, that is a common theme running throughout all of these maps so far. I wonder if this is just detailing or whether it's supposed to be the start of a new area. I guess it could be left as it is, or it could be turned into the entrance to a kind of secondary town down this way where it's not on the grid system over here. I'd be interested to see what people think of this map with the love-hate relationship that people seem to have with grids. I think this would be a very interesting one to build on with a grid system. So let's have a look at the natural resources. Oh my goodness. Okay, that is a lot of oil and a lot of ore. The person that made these maps really loves oil and ore and hates farming, and I'm not a fan of that. There's 119 hectares of fertile land, and I'm actually struggling to believe that because I can't even really see any proper pockets of fertile land apart from small pockets down here and a few bits along the river which you can't even really do much with. But I guess this is ideal for people who like using oil and ore industry, so not so ideal for me. But in a weird way, I really like this map. Again, it's a very interesting take that we haven't really seen before in the vanilla maps. And I'm a big fan of all the intersections. I'm a big fan of how many roads there are, and I think this will be a really, really good build to do. Again, if you can make it look kind of deserty, I think it would probably have a really, really good vibe to it. This probably wouldn't be a map that I would build on personally, just because, as I've mentioned before, I prefer to use farming and forestry, and this map doesn't really have much of either. I could cheat it in, obviously, and I may do that one day just because I'm very intrigued to see how this grid system works with the unlocking the tiles. But I think I'm going to give this map a 7 out of 10 overall. This is another Temperate map, Tranquility Cove. Now, this has a very interesting starting tile. This is what you see when you load into the map, and there is a lot going on here, so let's have a look. Straight off the bat, there is 2 rail lines that seem to be coming into different places. There's also some roads, some quays, a highway intersection, a bridge, another highway intersection. This is one that we haven't seen yet. It looks very, very complicated. Be interested to see how that works when there's high traffic flow. And then some more of these very simplistic highway intersections and more rail lines. So there is a lot going on here. So let's zoom out a little bit. Oh wow, this is a beautiful map actually. I really, really like this. It's a big highway intersection down here, one of these big sweeping ones. It looks like these two rail lines might be coming from the same place, if I'm right. So there's two rail lines coming from this way. One goes over here, and then one goes down this way. So this is one line that splits out into two, and some come down here, and then some carry on up this way. Wow, there is a lot of intersections going on here. Oh, I really like this mountain road up here. This is gorgeous. Goes up over the hills and then down into a valley. That is beautiful. And then it joins onto this one down here. Interesting. Okay, I wonder if that's trying to get you to build up in this space up here, possibly with the Mountain Village DLC. I like it. Okay, so there's another one of these little rail bypass things here, and another intersection down here with the other rail line. And this highway goes down this way. Oh, this is fun. There is a little road that goes down to this little spit. And down here there is these abandoned cars again, and a lighthouse and an abandoned house. I really like that. That's some nice little detailing. There's also lots of different types of trees down here. I really, really like this. This is probably my favourite combination with the oak and the yew and the pine or a conifer, whichever tree that is. I am a big fan of the nature on this map. This is really nice. So over this way, the bridge carries on over here. And then there's one of these little fort type things. I can't remember what they're called, but they're very common in Western Europe. I think they're a Dutch type of star fort, if that's right. Some more of these abandoned cars. And this road connects to the highway down here. Okay, so there's lots of good access points all over the map. And this bit down here would be beautiful for a resort. You could get a lovely beach out there if you maybe extended the land into the sea a little bit. And this road goes all the way around here. Where does it go? It goes all the way down to this piece of land here. I like it. This is nice. A lot of attention to detail with this map. Obviously, you would probably need the 81 tiles mod to get all the way down here, or at least to very intentionally go across this way, and you'd end up using a lot of tile just on water. So the road snakes down this way. That's really pretty. And then it goes all the way around the edge and joins back up with the highway here, where there's some more of these basic intersections. Okay, I really like this map. I'm a big fan of this map so far. I think it's really nice. It looks very accessible. You can get to pretty much everywhere on the map with highways that are already built on. And even though there isn't masses of land, like most of this map is probably taken up with water and mountains, I'd say that this has a lot of potential with the building area that you do have. There's a lot of these points that seem to be carved out and ready for a build to go in there. And I think you could probably get some very different areas, like maybe a big city in the center here, or possibly down here, and then some more villages around the edges near the starting tile. Speaking of the starting tile, let's have a look to see what it's like. Interesting. So this starting tile doesn't actually have that much buildable area. You can build on this piece of land down here, and you could probably get some small villages in this section down here, but you actually can't do that big of a build on the starting tile. I'd be interested to know what the population marker is for the first milestone, because I can't imagine it would be very high with that little buildable land on the starting tile. Obviously, you could probably zone along these roads if they are roads rather than highways. They've got streetlights and stuff, so you could probably zone along them. And these roads as well, you could zone along these too. But you wouldn't really be able to fit that much in that space. I'd be intrigued to see how this works actually during gameplay with how much you can do with this. So let's have a look at the natural resources. Wow, lots of oil. Lots and lots of oil on this. There's quite a bit more fertile land as well, which I like to see, and there's pockets of ore around as well. There's quite a lot of ore down here, and there's some up here as well. This is a good stretch of ore up here. Yeah, this has a pretty good balance of most of them. I think you'd probably be able to get a decent amount of each type of industry from this map. And on the starting tile, you have a little bit of everything, but not very much of one thing. So I reckon your best bet for industry starting on this map would probably be farming, especially because you unlock that so early. I reckon doing a little farm up here would probably set you up quite well, but I reckon that would need to be bulldozed and moved somewhere else in the future because this is going to become precious land. This is a very interesting map. I definitely like it more than the tropical one that was a bit disparate like this. So I will probably give this one a go at some point. It won't be my first choice, but it's definitely up there with ones that intrigue me, mainly because of all the little roads that go off into different parts of the map. There are ideas coming to mind immediately about what I can use those parts for. Overall, I would personally give this map an 8 out of 10. This is the first European map we're looking at. This is Fondue Lake, and this is what it looks like when you load in. I have high hopes for this map so far. It doesn't look overly complicated, and it looks like there's a good even amount of each type of natural resource. So let's take a look around and see what it has to offer. So I like the way that this looks so far. I think the bits of land where they've obviously split off the different natural resources from each other are a decent size, and it looks like there's also two fairly good intersections in the starting tile as well as a train connection. So this looks a lot simpler than some of the other maps, and I think I like it. This is a really good sweeping intersection here, but it does seem to have these two lanes down into one, which could be an issue. But lots of buildable land, another really nice intersection here, and I like the way that this train kind of goes through this valley here and then goes around the edge of the lake. That would be really beautiful to ride. So down here we've got a highway that splits out into two and then goes off in different directions, but has a nice intersection on either side so you can get across. This piece of land here looks like it would be perfect for an airport. I'm not sure where the airlines are on this map, but it looks like it's kind of primed for that. It's very flat and it's got a train connection already, and it's really near to the highway, so that's my initial thought. There's a few little nice pieces of detailing down here actually. I really like that. All of these maps have really good attention to detail. There's some factories down here with a little jetty. This train line goes off this way and the other one comes up along this lake. Some more nice detailing up here, little ruined castle. Wow, this lake feels like it's massive. This map feels so much bigger than some of the other ones that we've looked at, and I can't quite tell how because they're all the same size. This looks like an oil deposit here with some ore, another big sweeping intersection here. Road goes off this way with lots of buildable land. And then this highway goes all the way around the edge of this lake and goes off the map up here. And the highway actually splits out into two and goes either side of the lake. This one goes down here, and I wonder if, yep, once again, we're going to find these little cars down here. I really like this. It's quite a hilly map, so it'd be interesting to build on, but I think it has a lot of potential. So this side of the lake, there isn't really much going on in terms of building. There's a little lighthouse and a little abandoned house over here, but then we're back to close to our starting tile. Off this way, there's maybe a small amount of buildable land there, but it's quite hilly through here. Down this way as well, there is a nice little valley through here. This is really gorgeous, and I love the train line down here. That would be so beautiful to ride. Imagine coming into the city through this valley and then going along the side of the river, having these steep hills on either side, and then coming down this way and seeing it open up to a big city here going underneath the highway, coming all the way down here, and then a beautiful big lake. I also really like how this road here goes up into the hills. I'm a big fan of that. You could do some really interesting building up here, probably perfect for the Mountain Village DLC that just came out. So let's have a look at the starting tile. Oh, interesting. Not where I thought that was going to be. So the starting tile actually includes this little piece of land on the top of the mountain up here. It's got 2 train lines running through it, and it's actually got 3 different intersections with the highway and some smaller roads coming off of it all the way around here. I thought that the starting tile was going to be off to this direction, so this is a nice surprise actually. And let's have a look at the natural resources. Yeah, lots and lots of ore, but a healthy amount of fertile land as well, not anywhere near as much oil as some of the other maps. But I think this is a good balance because at the beginning you'll only have farming and forestry, and there is some trees up here. I'm not sure how much you could really do with them, but if you got creative with a little road going up this way, like continuing this one on, you might be able to get some of that forestry in the industry. It does have shipping connections, so you've got access to pretty much everything. I think this is a really, really good map. I'm a big fan of this one. I think it would be really good for doing a build where you've got lots of smaller settlements and then a larger city in the middle. I think you could do some really, really interesting things with this. It reminds me of the lakes in the north of Italy. I think this is maybe what it was inspired by. I could be wrong about that, but it does give me those kind of vibes, especially being a European map. This map has been made so beautifully. I'm a big, big fan of this. I think there's so much potential, and I really like how even the spread of natural resources are. I love the lake that runs through the middle and all of the roads and the train network. I'm a big, big fan of it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Next European map that we're looking at is Orca Sound. Now, from the get-go, this looks like it's going to potentially have not very much building area, and I think this has got the lowest percentage of building area of all of the maps, so it might be good for a small build. Let's see what the whole area looks like. Right off the bat I can see a lot of details. It looks like there's 2 or 3 different highways converging here, and okay, so there's kind of natural resource pockets peppered along this straight here. There is there's 2 train lines coming in there. I think this is probably the furthest away from the starting tile that the train has been throughout all of these maps. And there's some buildable area down here going up into the hills. And there's another train line that goes along here. Wow, that would be really beautiful to ride on. And it goes all the way off the map in this little canyon. So where does that train line go in this direction? Okay, it just goes out under the water and then just stops. That's very interesting. I wonder if that's meant to be a connection for a bridge, possibly? Or maybe it's just a little detail. There's lots of these little roads, once again, leading off to different features on the map. And yeah, really good starting kind of road setup, so you don't have to place too many, although this doesn't have as many as other maps do. This little road going across these islands is pretty neat, although I can't really see you doing much with this. Maybe this could be a good nature reserve. There's a lot of details already here. And once again, there's a road here that looks like it was meant to be a bridge, but I can't quite see them building a bridge all the way over to here. It also doesn't look like there's much over here to build the bridge to. Though, actually, I've just noticed over here there is the same thing. So that is a really, really neat little detail to make it look like there was supposed to be a bridge there and they just never finished it. So over here there's a small amount of buildable land, but not masses. And it looks like this is possibly meant to be an airstrip here, so maybe this is where the airport would go. I like that, it's kind of telling you what to do, and I'm assuming that the flight path would go over here, although it's the first map that I've looked at where there isn't a road going here. So this highway here coming off the side of the map isn't actually connected to anything at all. So I wonder if you'd have to maybe build the bridge to this side of the map to get them to actually go anywhere. And also to connect to the airport, if that is where you're going to put it, you're going to need to get that somehow. So this is interesting. It's the smallest map of all of them, and yet it has the least accessible roads. So down here, this road goes off winding through the mountains. Oh wow, this is gorgeous. You could probably put some small communities down here. I'm guessing this train line here. Oh, it's not actually connected. That's very neat. I like that. So it looks like that one should come out on the other side here, but they're not actually connected, so that train line won't actually be active. That's a really nice little detail, actually. I guess you could connect the two if you wanted to. Costs a lot of money going through the mountains, but that is a really, really cool little detail. Lots of unfinished things on this map. I wonder if that's anything to do with the lore, possibly, of what they were thinking when they were building it, but I like it. This side of the map is gorgeous. This is really, really beautiful. And then over here is that train line we were looking at a minute ago. And then over on this side, there's another area where you could probably put some towns down here. That's got a decent amount of space to build on, and the train line runs through here as well. This is a really, really beautiful map. Not very much that you can do with it, I don't think, but it is gorgeous. And then over on this side, there is again small pockets of buildable land. I like this bit around here with this little lake. This is really pretty. Very, very far away from everything else, but like with the previous one, I think you could do a lot of like disparate builds with this, and then kind of have a city centre, maybe possibly down here where the starting tile is. So from a bird's eye view, this is a very, very interesting map. There's a lot going on here, and I really, really like the unfinished details. This feels quite Scandinavian to me, with all of the tiny little islands and the hills or mountains. Feels like fjords, and I think this could make for some really interesting builds. Let's have a look at where the starting tile is. I think it will probably be somewhere around here. Ah, this is another map where the starting tile doesn't have very much buildable land at all. So this is all you have with the starting tile that you can actually build on, so you'd have to use that space really, really carefully. I think you'd probably have to pick which side you're going to do residential space on and which side you're going to do industry on, because you've got some pockets of, I'm assuming, oil here, and then maybe some fertile land as well, and a tiny bit of ore. So you've got a pick of pretty much anything here, but not very much usable space to do it on. So speaking of natural resources, let's have a look at the map. Yep, my prediction was correct, although there's not as much fertile land as I was thinking. Lots of ore over here, lots and lots of oil in the water, but not as much ore as some of the other maps. There's some pockets down here which would be good for doing an ore area, especially because the assets are so big. You'd need a large space like this to build on. Not very much fertile land though, and you've got some pockets of trees, but they're not really on very flat land. So you'd probably have to carve out some space to do some forestry if you wanted to do that industry. I think this is a really beautiful map. It's very, very well done. I love all the tiny details. I love all the little pockets hidden away behind the mountains. I think you could probably do some really interesting stuff with this. I've probably said that a million times, but I'm just in awe of how much time and dedication must have gone into these maps to make them look like this. I am still skeptical about some of the road networks, them being single lanes, and I know how bad traffic can get when it's not done properly, but it shouldn't be too bad of a fix, really. You just need to go through and change them probably to 2-lane highways, and I reckon most of the issues will be fixed. So with all of that said, I think I'm going to give this map an 8 out of 10. Last European map and the last map overall is Redcliff Reservoir. Now this one right off the bat has a very different look to all of the other maps we've looked at so far. This is a much more sandy, desert, barren kind of feel, and this has only been done a couple of times, I think, in the vanilla catalogue, at least of the maps that I have. So this is what it looks like when you open it up. Let's have a look around. There's a train line immediately running through, and there are some highway connections, again with these little roads coming off. It's a very kind of soft, bumpy terrain. It's not very flat, but I reckon it wouldn't be too difficult to build on, especially once you unlock the landscaping tools. But I really, really like the trees on this map. This is very interesting and very different to everything else, especially with the purple trees. I'm a big, big fan of these trees. I think they're gorgeous, and it's good to see that there's a map with these trees built into it somewhere. Some highways crossing over here. And this highway goes off and up through the hills and off into the distance. I really like this. This is a really cool detail. You get a great view of the city as you come in. And then there's some tiny little canyons going off. It looks like there may be some fertile land down here, but I can't imagine there will be much on this map. There's some rock detailing, but it's generally quite sparse. Oh, I really like this. This is really cool. I wonder if that's meant to be something. Looks a little bit like a very simplistic diagram of the cell, actually. It's probably meant to say something and I'm just totally not seeing it, but that's a really cool little detail. I like how all of these maps have these little castle ruin details. It's very good for giving the area character and giving it a bit of a backstory. This highway here going over the bridge is really cool, and the railway going around the edge of the river. It's quite a sprawling map, but there isn't much buildable land. So these just kind of go off into the distance. It'll be a beautiful drive, but there's not really much you can do either side of the river running through here. Some flat land on the end here, but it's actually not that flat once you get in closer. It's very, very hilly. I reckon you'd have to flatten that out quite a bit to work on it. And again, over here, very, very hilly, almost like sand dunes. There's some more rock detailing, but again, very, very sparse. I reckon this would probably be one of the most challenging maps to work with just because of how rocky the terrain is. There's not anywhere near as much going on this one as there is on the other maps, and I reckon the natural resources are going to be very sparse. But this is interesting. There's a little channel down here. I reckon this is where the name comes from, the reservoir. There's a slope down there towards the other river. And this is obviously where it was kind of blocked off from before. So I reckon the thought behind this was that this was all supposed to be part of one big lake once upon a time, but now it's just this tiny little riverbed because of the dam there. So this is a very different kind of map, especially compared to the others in this pack. It's very, very different. And I think it would be the most challenging. I don't think there's going to be very many natural resources. So let's have a look at the starting tile. I reckon it's going to be this area here. It includes this intersection and just goes on to this little spit. There's a few roads, but not as many as on the other maps. But there is a rail connection straight off the bat, so if you have milestones unlocked, then at least you have access to that straight away. I don't reckon this map has shipping connections, so you have to be savvy with how you get goods in and out so you don't overload the roads, especially as there aren't as many roads as some of the other maps have. Let's have a look at the natural resources map. Okay, so I thought there wasn't going to be many natural resources, but actually it's all ore and oil. I guess that's how they get the colouring of the ground, actually, is just through using the natural resource brush. It looks like all of the fertile land is under the water, which isn't very helpful at all. I don't think there's actually any fertile land at all. I thought that these little bits going off into the valleys were fertile, but it's only because they were in contrast with the oil and ore ground. They looked fertile, but they're actually just grass. So, yep. I will not be building on this map anytime soon, I don't think. This is completely the opposite of what I would normally be building with. It's a very interesting concept and it would be pretty challenging to build on. I'm very intrigued to see what other people do with it, but I will not be building on this one. I will give this map a 6 out of 10. So these were just my initial thoughts on opening the maps for the first time. There are some really, really great maps here, and I know I don't have as much experience as some other people do have building, but I can already see that there are some standouts for both beginners and very experienced players. It's really hard to pick a favourite because there were some really great maps here. I was a big fan of Karstlands, the tropical map from the very beginning. I think that it has really great potential to be a great sprawling build, but I think my favourite of all of them has got to be Fondue Lake. I've never really been a fan of European maps, but this one has completely taken my heart. It is such a gorgeous map and it has such potential. I can already see the kind of build that I would want to do with this, so I think out of all of them, this would probably be the first one that I would try and build on. It's going to be such a tough choice because there's so many good ones in this pack. They've really spoiled us with a surprise DLC, and even though the patch update has broken a lot of the mods, I am happy to take that hit if it means that we get to use all of these maps now. There's plenty of other people that have done more in-depth views at these maps, so if you'd like to go a little bit deeper, I would personally recommend Overcharged Eggs video. He gives some great commentary about these maps and gives all of the stats as well. Let me know your favourite of this batch in the comments, and also let me know if you started building on any of these, and if you would recommend a particular one to start with, and if there's anything about the map that you particularly like or don't like so far. I am very tempted to start another build series, even though I have 3 ongoing builds, one of which I've just started on Instagram and TikTok. They are filling me with ideas. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and happy building!